Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August CFRA member update call. This is our monthly call that we have for all CFRA members across California. It's just a 1 hour call, so we do some updates here. We do some updates from different committees, CFRA updates, member updates, and legislative updates. So we'll record this. We'll also be able to send it out to you all if you'd like to see it as well. And let's start with some introductions in the chat. So if you could put your name and your organization in the chat, that would be great, just so folks know who's in the room. And let me see here. I will get the agenda rolling. Okay, so agenda for today, we always start with our legislative updates. We did have our policy committee meeting yesterday, so we'll be able to update about that as well. Then we'll go into some of the CFRA updates, some of the work that we're doing, just some heads up about information that will be coming out to you. I can update about the upcoming standards training opportunities, and then there'll be an open floor for folks to share what's going on with them. And down here are some of our upcoming meetings. So without further ado, I'll pass it off to Dawn and Michael.
Okay, well, great to be with you all this fine Friday morning. Certainly, it's been busy here in Sacramento. As you may recall, we are in the final days of our 2024 legislative session. So at this stage, it's do or die time, if you will, for all pieces of legislation that have advanced thus far. So notably, they will be gaveling down on August 31st. It's not quite certain exactly what time that'll occur, but we do expect that that'll probably push towards midnight that day. Leading up to that, going into this next week, we do expect them to be on the floor of each house pretty much every single day, and likely until very late into the evening. Not only, advancing, policy bills that we've been engaged in, as well as in other policy areas, but also some additional budget trailer bills that are in the works currently, at least as we understand it, really kind of focus more in the environmental resources, climate related issues. But certainly we'll be watching for anything that does pop up over the course of this weekend leading up to next week. In terms of some of the key pieces of legislation we've been engaged in, I would really love to highlight specifically AB 1799. This is by Assemblymember Corey Jackson, who notably is also the chair of the Budget Subcommittee on Health and Human Services. And specifically, this bill seeks to kind of advance one of the recommendations out of the Community Supporting Task Force, specifically related to general neglect and trying to kind of address concerns about mandated reporting for general neglect. Now, importantly, that bill has been advancing as part of this session, but over the course of the last month or so, the Assembly Member's Office has been working very closely with Department of Social Services and the Office of Child Abuse Prevention on the legislation, and it came to light that there could be impacts from kind of eliminating the mandatory reporting requirement for general neglect, could impact the ability for the state to tap into captive funds at the federal level. So amid some of that discussion, Department of Social Services has provided technical assistance and has instead resulted in the bill being amended to still require reporting for general neglect, but that reporting would be to local community-based organizations supporting children and families, with, kind of the expectation that in doing that reporting to local community-based organizations, that would be, provided as well as the services and supports to help address that family's needs that led to kind of the concern about general neglect to begin with. So certainly not a full loaf, if you will, but certainly maintaining that federal funding opportunity is really critically important to the state and to the work of serving children and families in the state. So that bill is advancing. It's currently pending on the Senate floor. We do expect that that will move forward without question, not expecting any hiccups along the way. That said, the Assemblyman is very clear, though, that this is just the first step. He recognizes that there were a number of recommendations out of the task force, but ultimately, this was kind of his first bite at the apple. We've also been in conversations with him as well around some of the other recommendations in the mandatory reporting space. And they recognize that it's going to be important not just to, just leave it here with the general neglect changes, but there needs to be kind of a bigger, more holistic look at the various elements and requirements around mandated reporting. So more to come. We notably, Michael, Victoria and I had the opportunity to meet with the Assembly member just a couple weeks ago to chat about a variety of topics. For one, to thank him for his authorship this year of the resolution calling for April as Child Abuse Prevention Month, as well as his willingness to work with us on a variety of different issues for children and families, as well as thanking him for his very strong leadership in this budget cycle, standing up to some very severe cuts for children and families. Really just, wanted to appreciate that, as well as kind of share with him a little bit more about family resource centers, the work you all are doing in communities across the state, and our interest in revisiting funding for family resource centers. Now, notably, as part of that discussion, he, shared with us, some thoughts that he had in terms of funding for family resource centers, wanting to, one, be certain that that we wouldn't be entirely reliant on any funding provided by the state, that there would still be an expectation of continuing, to bring forth, additional funding from other kind of sources to ensure that there isn't significant concerns or really big impacts that would decimate the programs in the event that there were boom and bust cycles, as we would expect to be the case in the fiscal arena. He does not want anybody to be reliant in full, given those kind of boom and bust cycles that can impact budget. Additionally, he was also very clear that, the legislature, he in particular, as well as his colleagues, are taking a closer look at a variety of different programs that have been funded for years, as well as potential for new funding for new programs, with an eye towards, outcomes, and kind of metrics that can demonstrate success when it comes to those types of programs. So it was clear that also, as part of kind of any funding proposal we would advance for family resource centers, that we needed to build in some of that kind of information around, kind of outcomes, metrics, data points, what have you, to show how that funding is being used, much less success rates or what success might look like for that funding across the spectrum as well. So it's really, good information, good insights, good feedback from him going into that. And certainly he's very interested in continuing the conversation and chatting further with us as we move into kind of this next legislative session. I would also just note he's very interested in visiting his family resource centers in his district. So we are working to set that up. And certainly are looking forward to having him visit them in person here in the coming weeks and months. So more to come on that. Now, AB 1799, obviously, certainly an important bill we're tracking, a number of others that we've been engaged in and supporting, from everything around, childcare, CalWORKs eligibility, to other, proposals for, programs and services serving children and families. We were also really pleased to be a part of a larger coalition that worked to halt legislation that would have impacted the ability and processes for municipalities to contract with community-based organizations, nonprofits. There was a big push by labor in particular around kind of ratcheting that back and really focusing more on kind of municipalities' own employees up above and beyond those kind of contract supports that would be contracted out for nonprofits. Fortunately, those bills did get pared back and then ultimately were halted, so we won't see those advance. But we do expect that labor will continue to kind of push those types of issues, particularly with a number of key legislators who are coming from kind of labor themselves as part of leading various labor organizations, organizers, what have you. And so really hoping to be able to, continue to kind of, address the concerns, ensure that there is no harm done, no additional hurdles for those types of contracts, what have you, going forward. So that's kind of it in terms of legislative front. We will be, as we wrap up this session, providing kind of a recap of all the different pieces of legislation that we were engaged in and kind of what their outcomes were, as well as just kind of a preview as to what may be to come. The governor, notably for all bills that make it to his desk by August 31st, he will have until the end of September to take action on all of those pieces of legislation. In most cases, to the extent that he does sign them, they will take effect in most cases as of January 1st, unless otherwise specified in that statute, which could result in kind of later implementation effective dates, but that really is on a case-by-case basis. And then finally, just as we look ahead, certainly, building upon our conversation with Assemblymember Jackson, we certainly, will be continuing our diligence in terms of formulating a proposal for Family Resource Center funding. While we can't say with certainty right now whether that is something we'll have a pathway for, we certainly want to be prepared should that be the case. You may recall this past budget cycle, given the very significant deficit, legislators were not permitted to put forth any of their own kind of, proposals for budget items. As such, that really kind of cut us off at the pass for any kind of further discussion on advancing the proposal this last year. Not that it would have been possible given the deficit and the legislature's interest in just maintaining the programs we have to the greatest extent possible. But nevertheless, it's not certain yet whether they'll open that up for legislators to again entertain potential budget requests. Should they do that, certainly we'll be evaluating that and kind of potentially moving that forward. I will say, as part of that discussion, there will be, as you know, and we've discussed before, another third of the legislature will be turning over. So it presents some opportunities to work with some new champions to continue to build on those that we've already established. That said, in terms of just the politics of things, our prior champion on the Senate side, Senator Alvarado Gil, recently announced that she'll be changing parties from a Democratic registration to Republican registration. And while that doesn't affect her support for Family Resource Centers, what have you, that potentially could have an impact in terms of who would be, perhaps our champion on the Senate side, as there is a bit of tension and animosity when it comes to that registration change. And certainly we wouldn't want to get caught up in that. But nevertheless, really, I've appreciated her support of Family Resource Centers. And we don't expect that to change, despite that registration process. Some more to come. We will be doing some outreach to Department of Finance, as well as the key legislative consultants for the budget subcommittees, to kind of start to test the waters here within the next month or two around this, to see what opportunities may lie ahead. But I think more than anything, just recognizing the importance of being ready and having kind of our ducks in a row should that door perhaps be opened going into this next budget cycle. So perhaps I'll leave it there. Happy to entertain any questions folks may have. As you know, we're going into the really kind of heated point in the election cycle. And as I mentioned, we'll see another third of the legislature turnover. That will result after November, 2/3 of the legislature having 2 years or less of experience in policymaking, budget decisions, and what have you. So certainly we do have our work cut out for us, not only at the state level in building new relationships, educating them on Family Resource Centers and the work you all do, but also, hoping to work with you all at the local level to get some of those new members out to your Family Resource Centers to do some of that kind of in-person, touch point education, what have you. So more to come. We'll certainly be updating information. We also would expect, particularly on the Senate side with Alvarado Gil changing registration, that chairmanship of that Senate Human Services Committee will be impacted. So we will expect to see, especially with some of those legislators as well, terming out some deck chairs to be moving around. We do know that Assemblymember Jackson is pushing hard to maintain his chairmanship of the Senate Budget Subcommittee for Human Services. So that would be really important for us to continue to support his leadership for that purpose. But I think I'll leave it there. Again, happy to answer any questions or speak to any additional points that folks would like, but really appreciate your time today.
Don, I have a question. It's Jenny Broman from Safe and Sound. And I'm sorry, I was in the policy committee yesterday, but missed this part. And so I have a question on 1799. I did not hear the proposed amendments that that it sounds like are happening in partnership with CDSS and OCAP. It reminds me of amendments that had been recommended in AB 2085, which was the bill to change the definition of general neglect. And as I recall, CFRA was part of a group, and Safe and Sound was also part of this, that was opposed to language that required mandated reporters to report a family, required that the family got connected to resources or were reported to a CBO. And the reason that that group of organizations was opposed to that was because we all know that families, for various reasons, may not seek services. It may be because of an undocumented status. It may be because of prior negative experiences that they have had with systems. It may be because of issues just about accessing the services, transportation, time, jobs, children. And so I'm wondering if this is really similar language and if we should articulate our concerns around this same language. I know it's late in the game now, but that definitely is a bit of a concern for me.
Yeah, so Jenny, appreciate that concern. And I perhaps should be just in the interest of kind of recapping a bunch of stuff, maybe didn't quite characterize the amendments as carefully. But importantly, and I plugged in the link to the bill where you can see the exact language. And so it's not that the mandated reporter must make that report to one or more community-based organizations. They may. And it's especially if they believe that that type of report may help, address whatever led to the concern around general neglect. So we thought that that was appropriate, kind of softer. And again, with, the concern about potentially, eliminating the requirement for reporting in full, that potentially could impact the ability to tap into federal funds. So in conversations with the Assembly Member's Office, Social Services, I think everyone's hopeful that this is kind of striking that right balance, that it isn't a must, but is a may. So apologies for mischaracterizing that as part of my efforts to get out the update quickly. So hopefully that is helpful and a little bit more comforting, but welcome your feedback. I will say, this bill is going to move forward. And at this point, it is likely too late for additional amendments and refinements to the extent that there are significant concerns. Again, as I mentioned, the Assemblyman does plan to continue work in this area, this policy area, going into next year. And so certainly, if there's additional refinement that needs to be considered, it's certainly something we can bring to him. But, with all due respect, I think that's not probably realistic at this point. But take a look at that language and let me know what you think, Jenny. I'm hoping that the actual language in that amendment is kind of workable.
Okay, great. Thank you. And for that clarification, you may not have misspoken. I may have just misheard. And it's a great opportunity, I think, also to build on everything else that you were talking about of, okay, well, if this is the alternative and state you are recognizing that this is the alternative, we need to support all these organizations in providing these services. So
Absolutely.
good lead into our budget request.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Adam, thanks.
I was going to say, it looks like the amendment was it was the original amendment that was made when it was gutted and amended from being something completely different after the break. And so that's what it looks like. I didn't see anything kind of. So if you looked at it a month ago, it's still that same amendment. I don't know, Dawn, if you know are there kind of additional things, or is that just kind of what we've been the same thing we've been looking at since it was changed to this? Which I don't know, just that I guess that was the idea of is it at this point we think like too late that there might be some, if there's technical if there were technical changes that CDSS is wanting, it looks like would probably be after what it is we're currently seeing on the Cal Edge. So
Yeah, I'm actually right now trying to pull up, because in my system, I can look at to see kind of the full scope of changes within that code section. Unfortunately, it won't show that in the link and version I sent to you. But really what's noteworthy is the language at the very end of the link that I sent to you that's in blue is what CDSS's language that was included, and that was just amended into the bill August 20th. But in terms of, kind of broader changes to the law, ultimately it reverted back to current statute based on kind of what I'm seeing here, purely with just that language. So that was ultimately the change. There aren't other changes beyond that, except for a citation in the very first part of that section 11166 of the penal code.
got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks for that, Don. I think want to share a couple other impressions from our Corey Jackson visit. One is that I think one thing he has on his wall, he's kind of developing a theory of thriving, and I can share. We're not supposed to make it public, I think, but it's kind of where all the state investments in human services fit, and I think there's a real opportunity with his intent to go farther with legislating the recommendations of the mandated reporting community supporting task force to really help him integrate that and the community pathway in his whole larger picture of that network of support that he wants the state to be supporting. Yeah, I think that's the main thing I wanted to get across. That was kind of an exciting direction. Oh, I know also I was going to say, I think not so much about him, but regardless of whether we're able to have a budget ask next year, there's a lot of groundwork. We could do other things as we've discussed, and we'll explore them, such as like possibly informational hearing on family resource centers. And as you said, what we do right now and especially as new legislators come in, to get them out visiting our FRCs and getting excited about what we do, will do a lot towards our success in the future. We're going to talk a little bit about the program design work group that is following up on these recommendations from the state that we better define FRCs in program for legislation. And with many thanks, I'm looking at the screen and don't want to miss anyone, but Adam and Susan and Val and if I'm missing anyone else who's been involved, Janae, everyone, thank you for your involvement. That group wrapped up its work. But one thing it helped focus for the group is that admonition that we should not be doing things that would make FRCs dependent on the state. So the group has done a larger body of work that will go beyond this proposal, but it helped the group to decide to narrow down to looking at those things that FRCs now patch money together, but are kind of core. We were talking about kind of core activities and maybe activities tied to certain outcomes, but that right now they patch funding together. They would be more stable if there was a core source of funding for these things. And then if the state money ever went away, they'd go back to patching funding together, but that it would be a boost to supports for families. And then also we had a good discussion, I guess I'm going into it a little bit, around tying those things to outcomes, and we're going to do more work on that. So that we're able to have a real member-informed response in real time to this, which is very exciting.
Well, I'll just say thanks, Dawn. That was really, really a good update, and I liked the way that we connected that. Thank you, Michael, to kind of where we're looking forward to the future. Especially, Dawn, your interest about this switch or keeping our eye on the role of municipalities. And I just want to state the obvious that things really did change in this regard during COVID. And of course, our FRCs were right there and, for a while properly supported a little bit more. And, it seems like things are going back to the business as usual in some of our municipality and relationships. So stuff like that, keeping that on our horizon, I think is really important. And I appreciate the specificity of where we are now, but also looking forward to the continued need to talk about the difference that we're making together.
So if there's nothing more on the state legislation, I can do a little bit on federal legislation, which is kind of new in our work because it's been a new development that there's been work on the federal level on behalf of family resource centers. CFRA, along with Safe and Sound, and I don't know if anyone else is also now involved. If you're not and want to be involved, we can share information, are part of a national FRC coalition that is advocating for FRCs in federal legislation. In this year's budget hearing process, they introduced a letter from a number of legislators about including family resource centers in the social services block grant. I think that's on hold right now. What is a little more active is House Resolution 8798, and in a second I'll put a link in the chat if you want to dig into it, to define for the first time family resource centers in federal legislation and make them call them out as a allowable or encouraged investment for states for prevention of child abuse and neglect. And so I haven't been with the group, and maybe Jenny, you remember, but I think the group didn't meet last week, so I'm not updated on the latest status. Or if they did, they gave me the wrong link and I should get the message. However, so we'll have updates as we get updates. I wanted to, I kind of gave a little warning behind the scenes, but I want to see, Raina, if you would want to share a little bit out of this on the Ways and Means Committee. One of our California legislators, Josh Harder, is a member, and he went for a visit with us to the Tracy Family Resource Center and walked away saying he is interested in signing on to HR 8798. So, but Raina, how would you like to share about that visit?
Well, I did get to talk to the representative as much as you did, but we do understand that he is interested and that they see promising things happening. So we enjoyed the visit, and he knows a lot of our work, and he also wants to visit one of our South Stockton offices. So he's very involved within San Joaquin County.
Great. Well, thank you again. The Center for Families, I'm saying your name wrong, but the community, oh my gosh, Raina, tell me your organization name.
Community Partnership for Families.
Thank you. Community Partnership for Families San Joaquin has been amazing partners, and despite my fumbling, I am just feeling very connected, but thank you all.
Great. Thank you for those policy updates. Next on the agenda, we have CFRA updates. Talking a little bit about some upcoming review that we would like for you to participate in around the decision-making and committee structure. So Michael, did you want to show the document really quick just so folks get a preview of what to expect?
Yeah, I will dig it up. Yes, I will share that shortly. I didn't know we were gonna do it at this moment, but
I'll circle back to you.
okay, circle back to me. It'll show up in chat. The first thing you'll see in chat is the HR 8798, and then I will dig up that document for chat.
Perfect. Thank you, Michael. Some of the regional town hall updates and upcoming town hall meetings. So far we have hosted 3 town hall meetings. The first one was in Pasadena for the Southern California region. It went really, really well. We had some great parent leadership participation there. And so big shout out to Yolande for co-hosting with us. The second one was in Modesto at the Ceres Partnership. So that was very exciting as well. That was Center for Human Services that co-hosted with us. And that was Kaylee. So big shout out to her as well. And we had a really big turnout of parent leaders for that too. So that was great. And then the last one we've done so far, it was in Humboldt. So that was with Taffy Stockton and Heidi Benzanelli at the Westside Community Improvement Association, which was hosted at the Jefferson Community Center. And that one was 2 weeks ago, I believe. We had a really great turnout of FRCs within that network, sharing the impacts that our families in rural communities are experiencing. So each one was very unique to the community, but there's also been some trends that have popped up across the board. And so those have been some very successful and exciting events. We do have a couple more coming through. Next week will be for the Mountain Valley region, and that will be in Sacramento at La Familia Counseling Center at their Maple neighborhood site. And that one will be for folks that are in kind of the Sacramento area. Mountain Valley, we'll send out some communications about that if you haven't already received it. I believe we did send out to all of the CFRA members that are within that region last week. So that will be next week. And then we will also be working with Jenny to host one in San Francisco, hopefully in October. So those are the ones that we have coming up. We've got 2 more to go, and they've been very successful events. So if you haven't had an opportunity to participate in one, we would love for you to participate. Oh, I'm forgetting the San Luis Obispo one too. We have another one coming up in September. We've got 3 more down. We've got 3 more to go. And that one will be hosted at the Octagon Historic Barn in San Luis Obispo. And that one will be a little bit more focused towards community-based organizations, learning about what are family resource centers, what are the value of family resource centers, and what is the impact. And so that one will be still on target with the goals and objectives of the town hall overall, but the audience will be a little bit different, and there will be a little bit more focus on like some awareness and education around family resource centers in San Luis Obispo. So these different meetings coming up, they do have Zoom links. It's highly encouraged that folks participate in person, but if you haven't had the chance to attend a town hall meeting yet, I would recommend that you, even if your region has already passed, if you'd like to just kind of sit in and see what it looks like, please reach out to us, and we'd be happy to have you get connected via a Zoom link. So that you can, even if it's not within your specific region, you can at least see the conversations that happen and what are the impacts in those specific communities. So some very exciting work. It's been a really busy summer, but it's been really great, and it's really helping to shape our policy platform, get us ready for advocacy next year, and elevate community voice and the impacts across the state. So that's been the upcoming town halls. We had our program design work group this week. Just some brief highlights from there that we've already kind of talked about in our policy update, but we're really focusing in on identifying outcomes and impact measures for family resource centers, focusing on core services, and just thinking about, what we're going to propose in the budget proposal will be for those core services, and a requirement around FRC still needing to identify funding sources for the additional services outside of core. But we're working towards developing a more structured program design that we will share with folks as that gets closer towards the end of the year. And the next update is the landscape survey.
Actually, can I,
go
Victoria, can I
ahead.
speak a little bit
Yep.
to the program design work group?
Yep.
Just because it did just wrap up its work this week, and to kind of take stock and kind of where we can go with all the work that's been done. So the group looked at criteria about what would be funded from family resource centers, kind of program design elements, what work would get funded, outcomes and measurements. We didn't get really to cost structures and to the statewide infrastructure support, but went pretty far with the criteria, very much grounding them in shared foundational documents like Vehicles for Change and the Standards for Family Strengthening and Support. So very much more operationalizing Senate Bill 436, the definition of FRCs. And then with the program design elements, articulating categories of the work of FRCs and all the different things that FRCs do, which is a great reference point in terms of not just our current funding efforts, but other funding efforts, because we're not going to be able to go after everything at one time. So some of it is informing the current proposal, which is getting boiled down, as I said, to those things that aren't funded through any single funding source, that are core to FRC operating or core to priority FRC outcomes. But we just gathered a lot of information and member wisdom. So when we do get that funding and we need to write a program design and we need to write a notice of funding opportunity and those sorts of things, we have a great reference document that's going to keep living in from a lot of angles in the work we're doing. So again, much appreciation to the group that did that work. And it's something we can share, which maybe we can in a mailer coming up.
I think maybe for our newsletter that we'll do in 2 weeks. Another big project that will be coming up is the FRC landscape survey. So we have been working with Applied Survey Research and Strategies TA to develop an FRC landscape survey. I think we mentioned this last month, and for the folks that came to this meeting, we did a call out for sending in any questions that you would like to, if you're thinking about the landscape of family resource centers across California, what would you like to know at a statewide level from the family resource centers? For example, what services are being provided? What funding sources do they have? So what questions might you have for a survey for family resource centers across the state? So we've been developing the questions. It will roll out in 3 phases, the landscape survey. Starting September 1st, the first phase will be just to identify family resource centers out there, not even the full landscape survey, but of all community-based organizations that we have across the state, how many folks meet that definition of a family resource center. So we'll be sending it out to all of our members, but we'll also send it to additional partners, and we'll ask that you all send it to, if you're a network, send it to your family resource centers within your networks. If you know of other organizations that potentially are family resource centers that maybe aren't part of CFRA, send it to them as well. And this is just to identify who the family resource centers are that are out there. And so that will be for the full month of September. Once we wrap up that initial screening tool, the FRC Finder tool, we will launch the full FRC landscape survey. So that will go out mid-October to everybody who responded to that screening tool and met the definition of a family resource center. And we're trying to make it as condensed and succinct as possible. But it might take some time to complete the survey. So we'll make it as easy as possible to complete, but really it'll collect a lot of wonderful information that will support many different causes. Some of the purposes will be to support our advocacy work for family resource centers. So having deeper knowledge about the FRCs that are going out that are working in the community across California. So being able to talk more about the services they provide, the funding that they have, the challenges, the successes, all of that. It will also help us to increase peer connections across our CFRA members and developing profiles for them. So you'll be able to find information about who else is a CFRA member and who is sharing similar resources and information, or who has some resources that you need, that would be a peer connection for you. It will also be just an opportunity for us to outreach to family resource centers that are not part of CFRA yet. And so getting them connected to our network statewide will be really helpful and beneficial. And it will also support being able to provide technical assistance when it comes to the National Family Support Network standards, network implementation, and family resource centers implementation. It'll help us to identify who might need that support. And so there's a lot of benefits from participating in the landscape survey, but it'll take a lot of work to be able to get it out to folks. And so we'll be sending some communications next week with more information about that. And then we will also do a webinar mid-September about it as well. So keep an eye out for those communications, and then we'll record the webinar, but if you have a chance to participate, we haven't scheduled it yet, but we will let you all know when that's coming up.
Can I type in again?
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Thanks. And thank you for all the amazing work on the whole team you all have been doing on it. Just really want to put a marker in this for everybody, because we know there are folks out there doing FRC work, but we don't know who they are, but they may be in your neighborhood. We want to be representative of all family resource center work in the state as much as possible. And so really, watch this space, keep an eye open for it. In the next month, please give some thought to where you would pass on our screening survey and really help us identify folks. And also with appreciation in advance, because you all will be receiving the full survey, and it will take some time to complete, and just thank you in advance for that. It's going to, as Victoria described, create really rich, usable information for all of us, as well as for our funding advocacy.
Thank you, Michael. Do we have any questions about any of those updates before I talk about upcoming standards training opportunities? No? Okay, so more information to come. We do have some upcoming National Family Support Network standards trainings. The next one will be in 2 weeks, September. That one is closed already. But the following training that we'll be having will be in December. And I believe that it'll be, let me see, December 5th and 6th. You can register on our website. So Sadie, if you could put the link in, that would be great.
For the September 5th and 6th training, it is registration is closed now. But for the December one, it is open, and I can send the link for that in the chat.
Yep. Perfect. But if you have an organization that you have more than 24 folks that need to be trained on the National Family Support Network standards, and receive that full certification training, just reach out to us, because we can schedule a private training for you if you have at least 24 people that need to take it. And we can do that and provide technical assistance for free. So if that's something that you think your organization would be interested in, please reach out to us. And even if you don't have 24 people, potentially you could partner with another organization and boost up the participation that way, and then you can still get the free training. So if you do have that, please reach out to us, and we are happy to coordinate that for you. And let me see, I think that's it for standards training, unless Debbie, you had more you wanted to add?
I know I'm trying to talk muted. No, I don't at this point. No, that was good. Thank you for that update.
Great, perfect. And again, if you are implementing the standards and you are needing technical assistance with doing a program assessment, or implementing an FRC network, CFRA and Strategies technical assistance can support with that. So feel free to reach out to us for more information on that as well. And then lastly, we have member updates. So if there are any, do you all have any updates that you would like to share with us or with your co-members here on the call? Just anything that's going on within your organization, any questions, any resources that may have come up. Please feel free to go ahead and do that now.
I actually have a couple things of regional interest, and I'll be sharing them for our Valley members. So Vanessa and Paul and Raina, I don't know who I'm missing. Actually, I'll be going down to Fresno next week. We've been in touch with an organization. You might already know about this, but I'll share it and I'll put it in chat. We've been going down to, we've been in touch with an organization called Faith in the Valley. They are having a town hall of their own. And so it's our interest. There's a lot of overlap in terms of what we're learning in our town halls. So it sounded like it was worth it to come down in Fresno. And so if you give me a second, I will put that in chat. And then Vanessa specifically, they are part of a job summit in Kern County that you may also know about, but I will share that in chat as well. So I'll share those two things.
Any updates from any of our members? No? Okay. Well, I think that's a wrap for our call this morning. So thank you so much for coming. Feel free to reach out to us if you do have any questions that pop up. If there are any folks at your organization that are not receiving emails or calendar invites or things like that from us, please let us know so that we can add them to your membership. But otherwise, have a great weekend and a wonderful Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.